their salaries, then awarded themselves a whopping 250,000 shillings in-house allowance. Now, the men and women you elected want to be given literally everything. You have his stories and full list of allowances on page 4 and 5 and 6 of the Daily Nation today. Shame of leadership. Let's just all go over there and just get a snippet of what they're saying. A bit grid at this or grid at its peak in MPs' new demands to enrich themselves. And it says here that members of parliament want the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to reinstate and increase several allowances that the commission scrapped in an audacious move that could raise their salaries from the current 1.1 million shillings to between 2.1 million shillings and 2.9 million shillings a month, it says. In a memorandum to the SRC sent by the Nation, lawmakers are seeking to have their car grants doubled from the current 5 million shillings to 10 million shillings, increase their mortgage entitlement, extend their medical cover to more than one spouse, and retain huge car maintenance and mileage allowances. Should they not have their way in getting the car grant increased, they have threatened to use taxpayers' money to buy top-of-the-range four-wheel drive vehicles for all the 359 members. There are currently 290 elected MPs, 47 women representatives, 12 members nominated by political parties, and the Speaker of the National Assembly. And of course, this story continues here on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. You can grab a copy. And you have also legislators want their car grants double. I read that for you, but you have the timelines as well here. In 1998, MPs earned basic pay of 15,400 a month. Other allowances they received brought the total package to 122,000 a month. In 2000, MPs voted to increase their salaries by 700%, bringing their total earnings to over 600,000 shillings. In 2007, MPs vote themselves 1.5 million shillings gratuity, making the Kenyan Parliament the only institution in which employees are paid both a gratuity and a pension. In 2007, MPs take home a gross pay of 878,000 per month. Basic salary is 200,000 shillings, minimum commuted mileage of 75,000 shillings, an entertainment allowance of 60,000 shillings, an extraneous allowance pegged at 30,000 shillings, a house allowance of 70,000 shillings, a motor vehicle fixed cost of 247,000 shillings. In June 2010, after resisting calls to pay income tax for years, MPs finally agreed to pay tax, but only after giving themselves a sweetener. That is 240,000 shillings, taking the monthly pay to 1,091,000 shillings. The report makes improvement on the proposal for a new pay package for MPs recommended by the Akiume Commission, with the new salaries and allowances backdated on May 2008, when the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister were appointed under the Grand Coalition arrangement. The lawmakers increased their pay when they voted to adopt the report of former Appeal Court Judge Akilano Akiume, and it continues on page 5. Akiume Commission led a review of politician salaries in the wake of public anger. Now, the National Assembly Remuneration Act increased an MP's monthly earning from 851,000 shillings to 1.1 million shillings. In addition, the pay will now automatically go up by 5% every year to cushion MPs against the rise in the cost of living. Former MPs earning a pension below 100,000 shillings per month will have the amount increased to 100,000 shillings. In 2013, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission attracts the MPs' ire when it set their monthly pay at 532,000 shillings, 500 including allowances. The MPs rejected the terms, which they termed a pay cut and against the law. However, lawmakers finally backed down after a concession from the commission, including unlimited committee meetings for which they are paid a minimum of 5,000 shillings per sitting. SRC set the pay for the two speakers at 990,000 shillings per month, increasing annually to a maximum of 1,320,000 shillings annually. The deputies will earn 792,000, rising to 1,056,000 from April 2018. Parliamentary Service Commission moves to court to challenge the decision of the SRC. In December, the High Court nullifies the two Gazette notices that had details of pay cut. In December, the High Court nullifies the two Gazette notices that had details of pay cut. In 2019, SRC appeals the High Court decision in Court of Appeal. This has been compiled by Ibrahim Oruko. You can grab the copy of the Daily Nation today. Fresh push makes MP's job lucrative. Find the story tucked away on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation today. We shall be discussing this with the panelists much later in the course of the program. Let's move on and to see what the Standard is holding for us. And this is your splash today. Why MPs want spies in schools. Why MPs want spies in schools. Radical proposal here. Following chaos in secondary schools in recent years, a parliamentary committee wants undercover agents to gather information on students and point out the bad elements. This story is tucked away on page 6 of the Standard today. And we have also here a bite from the parliamentary report. It says, quote unquote, students' unrest pose a serious threat to the educational system and the nation. All they result in destruction of properties, loss of learning time, and psychological effects to staff and students. You're given the figures there. Number of schools affected across the country in 2018, that was 107. Also 62 number of schools that experienced arson and 23 schools that experienced walkouts by students. All that tucked away inside the Standard today. Also, auditor bombshell on dam scandal. Find all the details about the bombshell on page 9 of the Standard. Our court hits 1 million signatures for law change. It's all about the referendum, the Punguza Mizigo, Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2019 advocates reduction of number of MPs from the current 416 to 147. And all that is tucked away on page 8 of the Standard today. Let's move on and see what the Star is holding for us. You are lying. That is what the Principal Secretary Kibiso is telling Deputy President William Ruto. And the flagger on top there reads, attack. PS dismisses Ruto's claims as baseless and useless. Deputy President has claimed PS and others want to kill him. You have this story continuing on page 2 of the Star this morning. And here also is a related picture as well. Also, Uhuru blasts course MPs of a terminal. President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday hit out at Coast MPs opposed to the running of Mombasa's second container terminal by the Kenya National Shipping Line. The MPs, among them Mvita Abdul Samwad Nasir and Kisaoni Ali Mbogo, have been at the forefront opposing the revival of the KNSL under its current shareholding arrangement. This story continues on page 6 of the Star today. Also, students to be funded based on subjects course. That is all about the secondary school education. That is on page 4 and 5 of the Star today. Let me campaign for 2022. Ruto tells Uhuru is a story that you want to follow on page 7 of the Star today, even as this debate about development and also campaigns rages on. That is how the Star looks today. Make sure you grab a copy of that as well. We have the People Daily, and this is what you're waking up to today. Will they survive in the cabinet? That is the abiding question that is splashed on the front page of the People Daily this morning. It's all about audit, Rotich, Kinjuri, and Chelugui on the spot over graft and performance issues. This story continues on page 4 and 5, or page 4 of the People Daily, and you have the faces also spread there on the front page of the People Daily. Ruto death plot. It claims baseless. That is what PS Kibiso is saying. Ruto death plot claims baseless. That is what Principal Secretary Kibiso is saying this morning. He dismisses allegations of assassination, points out no one has complained for state to act. That is the story that continues on page 2 Newsbeat in the People Daily today. Taifa Leo is holding this splash for us. Uhuru akwepa mlima Kenya. That is what we have as a splash. At the splash, I should say. Wakazi viongozi wanungunika kwa rais kukosa kuzuru eneo la kati kuzindua miradi tangu mwaka wa 2018. That is what you can follow also on page 2 of Taifa Leo today. Uhuru akwepa mlima Kenya. Also wageni kusimamia eneo jipya la mizigo bandari ya Mombasa is another story on page 2 of Taifa Leo this morning. And madaktari wa Makueni waweka historia, follow their story also on Vidokezo on page 2 of Taifa Leo today. And you can see a related picture there. This is Uhuru Kenyatta akishauriana na Gavana Hassan Ali Joho wa Mombasa jana wakati wa uzinduzi wa chuo cha mafunzo ya bahari cha bandari jana. That is how the Taifa Leo looks this morning. Make sure you grab a copy of Taifa Leo as well. Let's move on and we see what also we have on the front page of the Business Daily. CEOs banned in kennel insider trading scandal. CEO's ban in kennel insider trading scandal is a splash on the front page of the Business Daily this morning. Ali Kensachu, former Kestrel CEO Andrew Desimon, penalized by the CMA. It says stock market trader Ali Kensachu and former Kestrel Capital Chief Executive Andres Desimon will pay cash fines and serve varying bans from holding key positions in Capital Markets Authority licenses for their roles in the Kenol Kobe shares insider trading scandal. Mr. Sachu, the chief executive of investment advisory firm Rich Management, will pay a fine of 4.69 million, paying from the commissions he earned from the illegal trades, and serves a 3-year ban after the regulator found him guilty of initiating irregular trading of the Nairobi Security Exchange listed Colonel Kobe shares ahead of last year's takeover announcement by French company Rubis. Also, the story continues on page 4 of Mr. Desimon, who was slapped with a cash penalty of 2.5 million shillings and 1-year ban for disclosing also these deals as well. You can follow the story on page 4 of the Business Daily today. 33 counties apply for controversial 1 billion shillings mobile health clinics is another story that you want to follow. We have a standalone picture here, and this is Wildlife Conservation, Tourism and Wildlife Secretary Najib Balala launching the National Recovery and Action Plan for the endangered mountain bongos at the Mount Kenya Wildlife Conservancy yesterday. The program aims to increase their population from the current 96 to 730 in the next 50 years. There are about 650 bongos in the world. This is a picture by Joseph Kanyi on the front page of the Business Daily this morning. Safaricom cuts internet charges. Safaricom has cut its data prices by 42% in response to increased competition in the telecoms industry, as South Africa-based shareholder Vodacom revealed in recent filings that the Kenyan unit made the largest cuts. You have this story tucked away on page 7 of the Business Daily today. Also, today's digit is 68%. That is the percentage of girls aged 15 and 24 in Narok who have ever fallen pregnant, according to a recent survey. This story continues on page 12 of the Business Daily. Beer price up by 10 shillings on inflation review. Beer drinkers yesterday started paying more for the tipple after the East African Breweries Limited and liquor retailers increased prices to accommodate last month's directive from the Treasury on the annual inflation adjustment for the excess tax. This story continues on page 19 of the Business Daily. This is how it looks. Also, make sure you grab a copy of this. Also, there's a sidebar story. I'll be remiss if I don't tell you about it. You can see it. Uchumi fights off eviction in Buruburu branch Rao is a story you can follow there also inside the Business Daily this morning. Let's cross over now to Tanzania. We pick the Citizen for you. Business supports government on Africa Free Trade Zones Pact. That is what we have on the front page of the Citizen today. Remember, Tanzania is still dilly-dallying on whether they should go full steam ahead with that is the African Free Trade Free Trade Area. That is what we have here on the front page of the Citizen. Business support government on Africa Free Trade Zone Pact. Members of a business community in Tanzania have said the government is right to adopt a cautious approach before ratifying the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. That is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. I was trying to struggle to actually get it. You have the story on page 2 of the Citizen this morning. Also, condolences for Azam Media staff killed in crash, and women 98 regains land after 40-year battle. That is another story also in the front page of the Citizen. You can follow the story also if you grab a copy inside the Citizen as well. Still there in Tanzania, Mwananchi there for us. This is a Swahili version of the Citizen. Msajili upinzani hawajalalamika zuio la mikutano is a splash. It's all about Chadema yakiri lakini yatoa sababu ya kutofanya hivyo. You know the story, follow it on page 4 of the Mwananchi if you're waking up in Tanzania. In Uganda, this is what is happening according to the Daily Monitor. Wealth creation has failed, says or say LC5 bosses. The district chairpersons meeting in Kampala says farmers fail to get market for their produce, given poor quality or irrelevant seedlings receive inputs late and they're not consulted. This story continues on page 4 of the business on the Daily Monitor in Uganda today. And politics of identity made Uganda a failed state. This is what Museveni is talking about. And you can see him here, President Museveni, with 109 senior officers from UPDF, police and prisons, who are undergoing political and leadership training in Kiankwanzi. After a lecture at State House Entebbe on Sunday, Mr. Museveni advised the group to desist from bad politics. The story continues on page 7 of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. Also, Catholic Church suspends 8 members of Band Association. UNRA starts repairs on Kampala-Jinja Highway. And new evidence shows priest was murdered by a gang. You can follow the story of Brother Emmanuel Magurara also on page 3 of the Daily Monitor in Uganda. In Rwanda, the New Times is up, and this is what is holding for us today. The front page of the New Times this morning. Where's the New Times for us today? Well, I don't seem to have loaded it up, but I'll show you much later in the course of the program this morning. But have you grabbed a copy of the East African this week as well? This is what is holding for us? Not really. This is an old one. Let me just try and get the current one for you to see what it is holding for us. There we go. Cautious optimism as Africa unveils $3 trillion trading bloc. Devil in the details. Experts say the success of the project will depend on handling of rules of origin and tariff concessions. Follow the story on page 4 and 6 of the East African this week. Also, EAC struggling to pay staff. State of Affairs blamed on delays and non-remittance of budget support by partner states. Also, Burundi needs financial help. Follow all the details on page 8 and 9 of the East Africa this week. Also, inside the magazine, Colimo's supported art and music is a cover story there. Follow it inside the magazine. A pull-out magazine inside the business, or not the business, but the East African this week. Let's see also the Wall Street Journal is holding for us. Let me try and pick it up again. The Wall Street Journal for us. I hope it won't be acting up on me. There we go. All right, and this is a celebration yesterday. U.S. women's soccer team keeps its grip on the World Cup. You can see them in a celebratory mood there. Championship cheer. The U.S. women's national team celebrated after defeating the Netherlands 2-0 in Lyon, France on Sunday to win the World Cup for the second time in a row. It was the 4th championship cap for the team. The story continues on page 14 of the Wall Street Journal this morning. We work plans pre-IPO debt sale. We work plans pre-IPO debt sale is another story you can follow inside the Wall Street Journal. And Deutsche Bank begins massive overhaul. German lender is set to cut 18,000 jobs as it retreats from global trading ambitions. Is another story, a sidebar one there. And Iran to break another nuclear curb. Iran said it was taking steps to increase uranium enrichment that will break limits set in a 2015 nuclear deal by Monday morning. That was yesterday, violating for the second time elements of the multi-party accord and putting it at risk of collapse. Of course, this is the latest copy. Time zone notwithstanding, that is what we have on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Allow me to hark back into history lastly and show you how the Daily Nation looked then. That was in 1963. Today is the 9th, and this is how the Daily, I hope I do have it here, Nation looked way back. That was on Saturday, July the 9th, wiping out the shifter. Kenya declares no man's land along Somalia border. That it was a splash then on the front page of the Daily Nation in 1969. The 7-man opposition group led by, also says here, parliamentary defeat number 1 for opposition. The 7th-man opposition group led by Mr. Oginga Odinga suffered its first defeat in the House of Representatives yesterday when the House rejected a motion questioning the impartiality of public services, including the Voice of Kenya. The motion moved by Mr. Odinga was the first opposition group motion to be debated in the House since the little general election, and the Speaker, Mr. Humphrey Slade, had to call for order on several occasions amidst constant interruptions from government benches. That is how it looked then in 1963. A word of comfort. Here is Dr. Njoroge Mungai, Kenya's Minister for Defense, has a word of comfort for this young boy who was speared by shifter raiders earlier this week. That was in 1963. The same shifter were on the receiving end on Wednesday when Kenya security forces battled their way out of an ambush at Ramu to kill 47. Dr. Mungai, accompanied by the Deputy Commander of the Kenya Army, Colonel Ndolo, visited wounded Kenya troops yesterday. That was way back in 1963. Also, government lists steps. The Kenya government has decided to eliminate the shifter menace once and for all. The President's office announced last night. This is a story, of course, giving the details of the headlining story that is on the front page of the Daily Nation. In 1963, Banda hits out at African states. President Banda today criticized some African leaders who, according to him, consider that Africa countries can use armed forces to topple the Smith regime in Rhodesia. That is history. Follow the story also in the latest talk. Not really the latest, but this is actually from our archives in 1963 of the Daily Nation. And lastly, I want to show you this picture, and maybe you can remember that or not. This is what we had then from our archives. Let me just try and pick it up quickly for you. Right, I'll try and also jog the memory of course, many of them can actually pick up this particular faces here. Aaron Cheriot from the archives. Save for President Daniel Arap Moi there, who was by then the Vice President and the first President of Kenya. Which other faces can you pick out from here?
On this one, you've got me.
I got you.
I have no idea who the rest of the guys are.
Okay. Right, Jacomedio?
I'm trying to imagine the first one is Achieng' Oneko.
Achieng' Oneko? Oh, you failed?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Kimani Matangi? Your history? That face?
Well, I also can't really pick them out all.
You can't pick it out who this is, huh?
To at least more I can.
More you can?
Yes. I mean, no, that's not Kenyatta.
I said save for Moi and Kenyatta.
Yeah.
All right, Boni Halwale. Yeah. Let's see. Scratch your head a bit or scratch your bald head.
I don't know that guy. I don't know that guy.
You don't know that. Otina Molo.
Well, first, when you say save for Moi and Kenyatta,
yes,
only three.
Of course.
That leaves only one. But so let me go beyond. Let me start with the background. I see somebody's head. That looks like Ngei on the right.
Like Ngei.
But on the left, this could be Robert Matano. I could still be wrong.
Robert Matano.
Yeah.
This is Lawrence Sagini.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, Lawrence Sagini was then the Minister for Local Government. Of course, joined by Daniel Arap Moi, the Vice President, and other ministers and delegates in signing KANU Yajenga Inchi
And the one on the
at the close of a KANU conference in Nakuru. This was in 1968.
But is that not Ngei lingering behind
Here.
President Kenyatta?
Over here.
No. On the
one you
to your
just
right.
touched.
Yes, the one you just touched.
The one, this one?
No, on the right.
On the right, here?
Yes.
No, it doesn't look like Ngei.
No.
Is it?
It looks like Ngei.
Does it?
Anyway,
Well, I don't have my caption there, so I can't really tell if this is gay or not. But this is from 1968, of course, from our archives, courtesy of the print library. That is what we have on.
That one is hard to...
This is what we had also in 1968. All right, so we want to buckle down to a discussion this morning, and the MPs are increasingly becoming notorious for almost exclusively focusing on what they can personally gain from their lofty positions in society, instead of devoting themselves to their cardinal role of making laws and articulating the interest of the millions of fellow Kenyans that they represent in the august house. Quite shocking is the revelation that they want a horde of new parks approved by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. This includes the recently awarded special night duty allowance, which they're calling domestic subsistence facilitation. The argument is that when they are in Nairobi for their legislative duty, they are away from their constituencies and therefore the taxpayer should pay for their stay in the city. This may sound like an intelligent pitch, but it rings hollow, and it is just a manifestation of an imaginable greed that seems to have lately gripped the people, once proudly referred to as honorable members of parliament. Now, there is, of course, absolutely no honor in this singular and dogged pursuit of a self-gain. Indeed, our MPs are some of the most highly paid. It's a shame, considering that our economy is one of the poorest, and shouldering the burden of the MPs' gluttony takes away even the little resources available from more pressing needs of the population, such as provision of healthcare, water, and other services. Now, these new outrageous plot comes hot on the heels of the controversial 250,000 house allowances or house allowance that they awarded themselves on top of a generous mortgage scheme. They also receive obscene compensation for doing the job for which they were elected. In the first place, that is, payment of sitting allowances in the parliamentary committee is simply obnoxious. The committee work is at the core of a legislative mandate and agenda. Why should they be paid separately to undertake this? This and other new allowances that the MPs are demanding will deviously push up their pay to 2.9 million shillings a month from about 1 million shillings. They are contained in a memorandum of the Parliamentary Service Commission to the SRC. The already pampered lawmakers also want their car grants increased from 5 million shillings to 10 million shillings. They also want the plenary seating allowance of 7,500, the SRC scrapped in July 2017, reinstated. Should this be endorsed, the sitting allowance in the committees for chairperson will be 15,000 shillings. Vice chairperson will get 12,000 shillings and ordinary members 7,500 shillings. Currently, the chairperson pockets 8,000 shillings and the vice chair and other members 5,000 shillings each. And this is what is on the front page of a Daily Nation this morning. Make sure you grab a copy for all the gritty details of this. Tucked away also on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation today. I want to throw it to our panelists this morning to just discuss this. Where are we headed as far as this is concerned? And one person maybe we can begin with, who is in this particular committee or the commission, the Parliamentary Service Commission, is Aaron Choriot. Aaron Choriot, you'll explain to us, what is this all about? Why are we having this memorandum at this point in time? Do you think this is a providential time to actually come up with this particular memorandum? And what is domestic subsistence facilitation that you're seeking?
Good. Thank you, Debarl. And first of all, good morning, Kenya. And it's a great honor to be here as usual. And like your rightly pointed out, I don't think there is a person more qualified on the panel to speak on this other than myself, because I am a commissioner at the Parliamentary Service Commission.
Yes.
Therefore, I speak for the rest of my colleagues on the panel on the issues to do with their welfare and facilitation. And I'll be quick to speak as follows, Debarl. First of all, this is totally unfair from the media. What you guys are doing, in no civilized country will this pass for journalism, because this is not journalism that you guys are doing. A lot of these figures you're picking are false, misleading. They are only aimed at portraying members of parliament as some greedy animals who have absolutely no conscience, which is not the case. I don't know what it is that as media you will benefit after bastardizing, the House of Parliament and making us appear as if we are people without conscience. This story is totally misleading, Debarl, and I'll give you the facts and figures. There is absolutely no way that a member of parliament can earn this 2.9 million that you're talking about. That is one, for example. Two,
given the aggregate of all these allowances,
yes, because it is absolutely misleading. The only issue that stands unresolved because we did a memorandum to, as Parliamentary Service Commission.
But if you, before you even go on, if you closely follow also all that timeline that we have there on page 4 and 5, Aaron,
Yes, I have.
surely you can see where it is actually emanating from
I have taken
1998
time-
to the current 2018 financial year.
Tell this fellow called Samuel Owino,
Yes.
the guy who did the story on The Nation, that have said he's a liar, that he's misleading the public, and this is not right. And if he thinks that it is a lie, please let him point out to me what calculation of whatever manner would amount to 2.9 million that he's claiming MPs are now demanding. The only figure that is in dispute right now is this
250,000
house allowance vis-a-vis domestic subsistence allowance. And it's a very simple argument. PSC decided to pay members of parliament house allowance in follow-up to a court decision where deputy governors, just like members of parliament, were discriminated against by SRC and they were denied housing allowance. An allowance that Employment Act of 2015, Section 44, provides that any employer must be able to provide for their employees housing, a housing allowance. Therefore, when SRC discriminated against deputy governors went to court, and SRC then argued before the court that whatever deputy governors were being paid was cumulative pay, which included house allowance. The court held in its decision, and that decision SRC has not challenged up to date, that you cannot pay a cumulative figure and say it encompasses all allowances that are due to an employee. Therefore, it awarded deputy governors a housing allowance, which they are now enjoying. So in furtherance of that decision, because when deputy governors went to court, any court decision, it is not only the person that went to court that enjoys that particular benefit. We passed on the same because this is a long-standing dispute that we've had with SRC. So we went on and paid the 250,000 house allowance to members of parliament. SRC quickly rushed to court and they got a stay order against us. So, and they, in their argument is that members of parliament, they have their homes where they come from. Therefore, we said, okay, well and good. If you think it will be unfair to pay members of parliament house allowance, where Otiende come from, where Jakoyo and Wamatangi come from, is not necessarily here in Nairobi, because his home is in Rarieda, where he come from. Then you have got to find a way of making him, paying for him when he comes here to Nairobi. Just like it happens across all other departments of government. If today, Debarl, a government official is sent to Nakuru on work assignment, they'll be paid subsistence allowance. It happens every day in all government departments. So I do not get this obsession with the members of the media that you have against us as legislators, because there is nothing that we have paid MPs that is not paid to the other branches of government. The only problem that you have, for example, the only media house.
But over the years,
on December,
how have you been surviving then over the years? Because now this is when you're seeking this.
Yeah.
Why are we having it right now?
At this particular, I've told you it's a long-standing dispute that we've had.
Since
with them.
when?
Since 2013. It has never been resolved. And until that decision of the court in 2018, October, that is when this particular matter was
But aside
resolved.
with the dispute, you actually want to have also your car grants doubled.
Car grant for the last
Why should it be doubled?
for the last 15 years, car grant has been 5 million Kenya shillings. Debarl, issues of inflation and so many other issues. And you know, we haven't. It's not that we have done it. We have requested SRC to vary the figure. They haven't been able to do it for the last 3 sessions of parliament. The 10th, the 11th, and this 12th parliament. They have all paid members of parliament 5 million Kenya shillings in car grants. Car grant, in simple, what it means is that because as state officers, the state is supposed to provide you with transport or a way of ensuring that you carry out your duties responsibly and without running into any difficulties. The choice, listen to me. The choice is either they provide you with transport services, that is the government of Kenya buys 450 Land Cruisers, places them at parliament, fuel them, have drivers, have maintenance. Instead of doing that, it is extremely way cheaper
Okay.
to give members of parliament.
Let me
5
understand
million
then. So
Kenya shillings.
you have a car loan
Yes.
that is advanced to you, isn't
Yes.
it? Do you want a car grant?
Yes.
So the same doubling of the car grant, is it also to be doubled with the car loan? Or
No,
is
no,
it,
no,
that
not
is
necessarily.
yes.
And this just goes on to point out the kind of either it's just
Misunderstanding or
not misunderstanding.
Yes.
It's not that these people who write these stories don't understand. It's just a desire to make MPs look like they are greedy, selfish. You know, they are immoral people. When you speak about, for example, this one for a generous mortgage, a mortgage is a loan, Debarl, just like anybody else. Aren't members of parliament entitled to a loan? It is not free money. At the end of the 5-year term, members of parliament will pay back.
But
even
no,
that car loan,
no one is disputing the
even
mortgage.
that car loan that you're talking about, at the end of 5 years, I'll be able to pay it back. So why would you mix issues to do with my salary and the loans that I'm entitled
But the issues to do with also sitting allowance, why do you need to actually be given more allowances to what we just read, you know, from 5,000 to 7,000 shillings?
But SRC scrapped that one. They scrapped it out, and we haven't disputed.
So you want to say you're not receiving sitting allowances as it is right now?
Yes, we aren't.
Okay. Let's hear from Jacomi Dio on this.
I am not a member of parliament anymore.
That's why now you at least know, you know, they say if you're not in the picture, you can you can clearly see the frame.
So that what I say must be out of experience and some authority, having led members of parliament and having been a leader of parliament. You know, Debarl, you are stressing Cheriot for nothing. You can see, I'm happy that Aaron, the same vigor he defends Tanga is the same vigor he's defending this thing. But this one, he didn't need to use so much energy. I'm amazed at his consistency. But, Debarl, this is an argument which has been struggling to find its way in the media the last few weeks. The more we talk about corruption and the more we talk about the issues of referendum, the more the media has been trying to push this thing, which leads me to think that it is a non-issue. That I think this debate cannot make sense if the media is not prodding what the ministers are earning,
Including CAS, they have also done.
what a government that can go out of its way to create unconstitutional offices like CASs and pay them. Oh. CASs on these streets are even going around with those 99s. That is cost. You begin from the unnecessary one. What is a CAS? It's not in our constitution. Then you come to the deputy governors who live in their home counties. You are giving them house allowances and they are living in their houses. And most of those houses are freehold. There's not even taxes levied on them. This is a very messy situation. But I can tell you, this story is what Donald Trump calls fake news. MPs...
What is so fake about it?
What is so fake about it is... Can you shut up? Okay. What is so fake about it, Debarl, is that I saw the lady that heads SRC go out with such gusto to demonize MPs. The one who was before her was Sarah Serem, tried to grade MPs, the job of MPs, as unprofessional service to the country. In other words, you're saying Utindi Amulo is not professional, or Boni Alwale when he was there is not a professional. You know, the country cannot move forward when it goes after its leaders in isolation. There is no way a CAS handpicked from nowhere should have more perks from the person who gives the budget to the country. The alternative, when a Kiwumi commission was formed, it was formed where one of the cardinal duties was to figure out why are MPs corrupt, why are politicians corrupt? Because you are paying them a paltry 70,000 shillings, then you you call private sector or government to go into those committees, they will have to cough money. They will have to cough money. A person who is properly paid, it doesn't mean that if they are properly remunerated, others should not be. And about this joke about high wage bill, it is not sorted, it can never be sorted out by reducing people's salaries. It can be sorted out by taking away the bad meat, the rotten meat, the ones we don't need in the system. It's just that SRC is not doing recommendations. It keeps talking about salaries. But there are so many layers of public service that we do not need. You are complaining about an MP having a car. An MP must have a car. An MP must have a car. That is not an easy job. Debarl, in this country, if I was an MP and I went to game, the people think I am the government. And that means burying people, it means doing all these things. Put against a salary of 600,000 shillings, most MPs live very miserable. That is no wonder the ones who were kicked out with us, or who lost alongside me, are all in corridors of government trying to look to be put in boards and all those things because they can't wiggle. No room to wiggle. Let us do this thing right. This Salary and Remuneration Commission can do better. But lastly, the Parliamentary Service Commission is a commission like any other commission. It's not a pseudo commission. It's a commission like any other commission. Now that the country has decided that it is not necessary, please abolish it. That is why we are calling for a referendum to clean up this system, to reorganize the civil service, to reorganize the political structure, to reorganize the administrative structure. But the moment you keep doing what has happened in this country for the last 10 years, I think we will end up where we are, because you have seen the result. MPs denying SRC a budget. Why is nobody asking what the judges are doing? How many cars, you saw how many cars the judges are trying to buy. This whole issue of independence, whether it's parliament or judiciary or executive, we need to sort it out in this coming referendum. Thank you.
All right, let's hear from Otende Amolo, because we have a threat here that car grant should be permanent feature in terms and conditions of service for an MP. If SRC is not willing to accede to this request, PAC shall, pursuant to its mandate under Article 127 of the Constitution, purchase a motor vehicle for each MP and thereafter fuel and maintain the same through regular service. This is what the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, is saying. Should Parliament adopt this proposal, the vehicle bought for MPs by PS will be registered to the government, and hence the Commission will hire drivers and transport managers for the vehicles, which Muturi says is a necessary additional burden on taxpayers. And this is what the new parliamentarians are seeking.
Well, I find myself in a very interesting situation. There are 2 pages, I think almost 4 pages dedicated to the question of salaries of MPs.
Page 4 and 5.
I have seen very choice words, both from yourself and from other media houses, including yesterday, House of Greed, obscene, and some. I just sit back and wonder, are we talking about the people I know, including me as a member of parliament, or is this something else that I don't know? Because I see proposals, I see figures that are strange to me. Even the story you've just read on that page, its contradiction is self-evident. When you say that PSC is urging SRC to agree, then in the same breath you say if Parliament adopts that proposal, then the contradiction is obvious. A proposal by the Parliamentary Service Commission to SRC should not and cannot be the basis of concluding the greed of all members of Parliament. It is a proposal. And it should not be confused then with saying members of Parliament if they adopt. You see? Anyway, let me put this in context, because for me, I think this is a discussion that is misplaced. First of all, as a member of Parliament, my motivation in running was never to come and make money. It is not to make money. And for speaking for myself, I would not care if they doubled my salary 5 times or if they reduced it 5 times. Because at the end of the day, with the 2 or so years I've been a member of parliament, the truth of the matter is that anything you get as a member of parliament is used on the constituents within the first 7 days, and that is the truth. Yes. Anything and any increment increases the amount of money that is available to the constituents. Any decrease decreases the amount of money that is available to the constituents. And therefore, for me, it is a matter that must be determined by the relevant bodies. The second point is, and again speaking for myself, the Constitution is clear on this matter. We set up the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to set and review salaries and remuneration of state officers. That is their constitutional job. Mm-hmm. We also set up the Parliamentary Service Commission to, among other matters, to review the services and facilities that are available to the members. Between the two commissions, it is expected that they should, bearing in mind everything that should be considered, arrive at what is reasonable pay and remuneration and benefits to the members of parliament without subjecting us members of parliament or you, the media, or anybody else to all these discussions. Thirdly, I can tell you, anytime you say members have increased their salaries, they've increased their benefits, they wish, trust me, most members of parliament read about these matters in the media. And members who've been there before me, Dr. Halwale, Jacob Midio, will tell you, because for me, I can tell you, that even for the 2 years we've been there, there is no occasion when the question of salaries and benefits has come to the floor for discussion. It is a mandate of the Parliamentary Service Commission, and there are those which they can deal with because they are an independent commission, as Jacob Midio was saying, and once they decide it is effective, there is no opportunity for it to come for adoption in the plenary. And there are those which they engage with the Salaries and Remuneration Commission. So every time there's any issue and then all the members are condemned that they have increased, you'd imagine that there's a debate that is in the plenary and then now, you know, those for and those against the way we debate most legislation. That is not the case. The case is totally different. But more importantly, for me, because there are those institutions, between the Parliamentary Service Commission and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, whatever they agree on, I am happy to take. But if they don't agree and the matter goes to court, as it is now in court, whatever the court decides, I will abide. So part of the question that I ask myself is, if these matters are in court, and indeed they are, why is there a sudden interest in discussing the merits or demerits of matters that are already before the court? Why am I being drawn here as a lawyer and an MP to discuss matters which I know are alive in court?
No, but let's be
Debarl,
very clear. What are the merits and demerits about the 250,000? Because it's not being discussed here.
Hold on.
We are looking at these other 17 allowances.
Debarl,
yes.
That's the point I'm making. And you and I have been here before. You and I know the restraint with which, personally speaking for myself, I always engage with on matters that are live before the court. So the question I'm posing is, then why this, instead of pushing this in court, why is it being discussed here now? I concede that not just members of parliament, not just the president, not just the cabinet secretary, we must all be alive to the fact that the purse strings in this country are diminishing and the demands are increasing. We must all be alive to the fact that we have to rationalize. Okay? Now, let me talk about this rationalization.
Could we, before you talk about rationalization, hear from Watangi
but
and
let
Boni?
me just finish. You posed the question, Debarl. It is not fair to pose the question and you let us hanging. I don't want to come back to this subject because for me, all I'm saying is all I'm saying on it now. I'm not coming back to it.
Okay.
First of all, there's some immense, there must be an appreciation by all of us, including members of parliament, that we need to adjust. But this adjustment should be considered across the board. The truth is, we set up the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to consider the necessary adjustment for this country across the board. That adjustment must not only focus on members of parliament.
So you think they're cherry picking on the members of parliament?
What I want to tell you is, I've served in the committee of experts. I've been the ombudsman. I've been in private practice before this. I have never been as broke as I am now as a member of parliament.
Yes.
Let me explain to you. Yes, I'm telling you.
It is the truth.
I am telling you. And quite honestly...
It depends what broke means.
No.
Yeah.
Let me explain to you only briefly. There, if you look at Article 260, there are at least 17 categories of state officers. Of all those state officers, I can tell you they enjoy certain perks. So let me tell you the ones I enjoyed as ombudsman. And it's enjoyed by all. One, you have a motor vehicle that is purchased by government, that is maintained by government, that is fueled by government. Two, you have a mortgage scheme, not of 20 million, but of 35 million, okay? Which, unlike Parliament, which you have to pay in 5 million, in 5 years, you can pay for up to 20 years, even after you leave service.
After leave service.
I am telling you what other state officers
Maintaining
get.
the same
That,
rate?
I am telling you, yes.
The
same rate.
The same rate that you
Yes.
give it, okay.
Thirdly, you are provided with a driver and most times a bodyguard. And any time you travel, they are catered for. As a member of parliament, you cater and arrange for all of those of yourself. But beyond all that, when you then now see that they're talking about a figure of like 2.9 million, you don't understand, because I can tell you that what's available to members of parliament is 20 million for mortgage and 5 million. I can tell you, Debarl, that any member who has proceeded to take that loan of 20 million, the earnings is zero. I'm telling you, I have not taken it because I did the calculation. And if you take that 20 million, you will not be able to take the car loan of 5 million because your earnings cannot support both. You know, these are things that must be put. I have not taken either, I'm telling you. And for me who has not taken either, if you look at the figures that comes on that salary slip, the figure is 500,000. When they take of 2.9 million, I don't understand. So now, by the time I was elected,
The
member of
2.9
parliament,
is the proposed. It's not the take-home.
No.
Yes,
Even
yes.
before that, you always talk of a figure of 1 point something million.
Yes.
I don't know where you
The
get that
aggregate
from.
of all these allowances as well.
You know, Debarl, sometimes we should discuss this thing in a very specific manner, where you even ask, bring that salary slip, and so that it can be analyzed. Now, let me tell you, by the time I was elected, I already had my house in Nairobi. Since I was elected, I've not bought any house. I've hardly bought anything. But it is not true that all members were living in Nairobi by the time they were elected, that they had houses. I may have been privileged. Maybe some of us were privileged by the time they were being elected. But there are members, and you saw like some members who by the time they were being elected, I think like our colleague it's Uhuru Kenyatta, who had to donate a car to him. When you see those kinds of members, then you empathize. Now, the summary of my position is this. First, there is immense exaggeration in this discussion, which is unfair. Two, it is true that we must all rationalize what people earn, including members of parliament, and abide the reality of the day. But three, all of us must come with the perception that we are not coming to make money, we are coming to serve. Because ultimately, there's hardly any money you will make as a member of parliament. And the discussion should be taken seriously by the Parliamentary Service Commission and the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, and save all of us, Kenyans generally and members of parliament, this unnecessary discussion.
All right, we will circle back with Wamatangi and Boni Khalwale, and of course they'll tell us if they think this is a necessary discussion. And of course, when it comes to this particular pay perks and the increase, yeah, we always see the other side of the legislators. So I'll leave it for you to decipher what they will tell us this morning. And this also is a developing story that we're keeping our eyes keen on. So we take a short break right now. When we circle back, we hear from Wamatangi and Boni Khalwale as well. Are they as broke as we are given to understand that some legislators claim they are broke right now because they're in parliament? All right. So we'll hear from Wamatangi as well. discussion about MPs, their salaries and perks. We promised when we circle back, we'll continue with Kimani Matangi and, of course, also Boni Khalwale to wind up on the discussion as well. Let's begin with you, Kimani Matangi.
Thank you, Debarl. And before I make my contribution, let me know the time that I have, because...
the time that you have?
Yes, because...
Otende now will not speak for the next...
Let me finish. Because
okay. No, you remind me to pick up my bell as well. And where my yellow card? Please.
Absolutely. Yes, that's what I wanted
I have my cards
do.
as well.
Because going by the standards today, you know, we started at 6. Only Otiende Amolo and Cheruiyot have spoken, and Jakoyo. That means that in the 1 hour, if you divide by 3, everybody is speaking for 20 minutes.
We begin at 6:34.
So I want you to put that aside until 7:20. I could excuse Jakoyo. I could excuse Otiende because you know, he gave the talk of 3 weeks.
The ones he's been missing.
Combine all of them. But you know, and I believe Khalwale agrees with me that the next 40 minutes belong to the two of us. So let's
That's okay.
Now, anyway, Debarl, that was on a light touch, though. I would want to say just a few things. First, that you know, I excuse the media personally on this, and I excuse the nation, and the other media also ran the story.
Yes.
Because you're in business, and the media in business, and so you have to put in the headlines what sells, and this topic sells. Remember, when from so many descriptions, greedy to MPs, and the photos of some of us. I don't know whether Khalwale's photo was ever there, but I remember some of them with pig heads to the name of a member of parliament. And unfortunately, Linturi is not here. He was one of those who was depicted many times by the media with that head. But you know, you ask yourself, Debarl, who are these MPs? You'd ask yourself, was Martin Shikuku an MP? Was Kenneth Matiba an MP? Or James Orengo, with the work they have done for this country? I mean, when Shikuku was dying in a small hospital here on Lenana Road, tiny place in a very probably humble manner, would one describe that as an MP? When Ochieng Muga was always here, Muga, when he was on the street here around the Reinsurance Plaza every day, you know, and walking around there, you could see after his term the kind of conditions he's living in. Would you describe that as a guy who has exited from the kind of description that's been given now? And also, in the media, and I think it's the nation itself, there's a small caption you always run on humor about an MP who very occasionally nowadays is seen around Parliament going for a cup of tea because it is cheaper and than going to 5-star hotels, and you make fun of it. That's the reality of what an MP's life is. And you know, personally, I would be very surprised, and I want to say this for a fact. As Wamatangi, since 2013, when I was elected, I have never, ever, in fact, I wonder, what are these claims that people talk about? I've never been paid a single allowance of those mileage, including even when I've gone to serve out of Nairobi on official duty, in Naivasha, in wherever, using my own car. I have never been paid a single day. And I was having to tell myself that I think I need to make some of those claims. What I would want to really allude to in my thoughts is that, you know, as they say, sometimes I think public service is a very thankless job, because what Otiende was saying indeed is true. That the little money that I have earned personally and I agree with him entirely. I spent all of it and more of what I make out of my private endeavors absolutely on social welfare in my county and elsewhere. And so, you know, you ask yourself, what is this obsession then to bedevil MPs? Sometimes, Debarl, we had a sitting with the SRC as a team in Parliament. And Sarah Serem, in plenary of Parliament, during a Kamakunji, came and said, actually, they do not understand. I think somebody said that. They don't understand what the job of an MP is. Yeah. That's what Sarah Serem said. And you wonder, if you are the head of SRC and you're coming to Parliament to tell Parliament in a discussion as to how they will frame the scheme and how you pay an MP, they say we don't even understand what your job is. Then how do you expect them to even understand how they're going to remunerate members of Parliament? Just want to say, you know, there's some things that make sense, some others don't. If you look at that point that has been canvassed there about car loans, it's really a no-brainer in my view. Right now, if you see all those vehicles that government is buying, the new ones, those new Prados, it is buying at 12 million, one. Government is spending about 25 million, because that's how the mathematics works, to fuel, maintain, and run that vehicle for its lifespan. So you're talking about an expenditure of about 40 million per vehicle you buy. So what sense would it make if then you say the MPs have no cars, so we are not going to give them those grants, and then you spend 40 million per member of Parliament out of 500 members of Parliament? You know, and without having to be repetitive, this story about loans being given to members of Parliament is a big deal. Every person, including privateers like ourselves, when I want to undertake any venture, I'm qualified to go and get a loan from a commercial bank, from any entity, from a SACCO. And even employees in other government arms have SACCOs. I mean, Kenya Airways, whoever, and they get loans from their own SACCOs. The underlying principle is you get a loan, you pay for it. If you don't pay for it, your collateral is recovered. The loans that members of Parliament get, indeed, as Otiende says, are deducted from our salaries. Last time, I never took that mortgage in Parliament. I said, why don't I try it this time and see what is the difference? Otiende Amola, I want to confirm that you're right. I did it as an experiment to see. I took that mortgage. Once I took, now if you look at my payslip, it reads 640 shillings after, and I can bring it next week as a demonstration. You know, because I thought last time I could have missed on this thing. Why don't I just take it this time and see how it looks like? So I said, fine. I filled in all the papers. I have it. I took. But now, if I was not if I was not working elsewhere, if I didn't do my business, and of course I got elected as when I was still an entrepreneur, my friend, my children would go hungry. Even if I was taking it to go and buy a house, I would buy a house and they would live in that house hungry. Without eating. So those are the realities. And so when this picture is painted, it is a very, very, very wrong picture. But I said, Debarl, in my opener, it is allowed because for yourselves, you have to make business. But for public consumption, it is wrong. Because members of parliament then get misunderstood, and the public then it creates and develops a hostility among to the people they have elected to serve them. And that is why you find, if you did today a sample of ratings of how members of public perceive public servants, or actually people who serve them in general, MPs will be the lowest ranked or the highest ranked in the reverse scenario of the most hated.
Thank you,
and the contribution to this is really done by the disinformation. It is important that this picture is painted correctly. I want to save my other 10 minutes for the next point coming.
Thank you. Let's hear from Boni Halwale. We close on it.
I'm saving my 10.
Thank you very much. I would like to take this opportunity to send my heartfelt condolences to the family of my friend, advocate, businessman, Karanja Kabake, who died suddenly, and we understand they're investigating the cause of death. This is a man who I shared on such panels in other TV stations, and he was a great legal mind, a great businessman. We're going to miss him.
Right. We've dedicated also some time for Karanja Kabage, at least 3 minutes. I think his last appearance also on People and Politics was seated with you here. So we'll play that much later.
I also would like to send my condolences to the family of
Joka
Denge, a great footballer, arguably the greatest footballer this country has ever seen. But that having been said, allow me to address this very difficult issue. What we are seeing in the headlines, I can see my colleagues who are currently in Parliament, you are very jittery. What you're seeing, the problem is not you. The problem is the media is trying to address the relationship between voters and the elected leaders. To me, it is a love-hate relationship. If you go to Parliament today, at the precincts there, you'll find people from Kakamega, people from Karajuonyo, people from Turkana and what have you, mark timing to see if they can spot their MP or any MP that they recognize to pick some money from them. So here we have voters who would love MPs who have money to be addressing their appetites and at the same time, they don't like seeing those MPs being paid highly. To me, I have no problem with people being paid highly so long as it is in proportion to what they do. I therefore want to now address my colleagues, members of Parliament. Members of Parliament, you have a celebrity mentality. Celebrity mentality. All of a sudden, when these guys get elected, they stop drinking and socializing in their usual joints, and you start seeing them at Kempinski, Intercon, Serena, and what have you. To drink at Kempinski with 3 or 4 people, you go home with a bill of 50,000 or so in one evening. Their celebrity mentality is such that when they are given a car grant of 5 million, they want to increase it because they not only want a car, but they want a car of the higher range. If we allow them to go away with this mentality, they will soon now be asking for a helicopter grant, because these days now the celebrity mentality of MPs is that they fly around in and out of functions. When they are given a house allowance, for example, members of Parliament, if you had started asking for a house allowance of, say, argument's sake, 50 to 100,000, Kenyans would not have talked about it so much. But when you start by asking for 250,000 shillings for a house allowance, where do you want to go and live? Cheriot, you are a commissioner. Are you telling me before you came to Parliament, you were plunked from an estate where you used to pay a rent of 250,000? Is it not a fact that now that you have been elected, you now want to be a celebrity, you want to move away from the usual place where you used to live, you now want to go and uplift yourself to the upper market estates in this country? I therefore would like to ask my brother Otieno Molo, welcome back from celebrity behavior of watching football in Egypt, something where the taxpayer was paying. Do you know how many of your age mates in Rarieda would have allowed you to watch that game in Egypt?
I will respond to you.
Yes. So
Just keep asking.
why is it that when I
I'm sure he knew the
Okay,
answer.
let him finish. No, let him finish. Let him finish.
Why are you allowing me to mislead Kenyans? So when I listen to a commissioner justify their appetite for car grants, bigger mortgage, house allowance, because of a court ruling on deputy governors. Surely deputy governors have just been around for a very short time. You could have justified it using other reason. To me then, the issue of SRC. SRC was a noble idea in the new constitution. But the first person to be the CEO of SRC messed up that institution completely, because when she came, she thought she had been asked to go and fight members of parliament. So instead of harmonizing the salaries of public servants, she went for MPs directly. I remember when she appeared before the Senate, she told the Senate that she doesn't see the difference between a senator and a member of parliament. I mean, if you couldn't see that a senator of Kiambu addresses a constituency of 12 sub-counties as opposed to the MP of Juja, who addresses only one sub-county, and therefore conclude quickly that the senator of Kiambu deserves to be paid better than the member of parliament of Juja, then she was not fit to be in that office. She would have used that opportunity to harmonize by addressing some of the important issues raised, especially by my brother Omolo, that we have permanent secretaries and cabinet assistant secretaries who enjoy perks that are better than nominated members of parliament. She failed to do that. I therefore want to conclude by appealing to the Republic of Kenya that, let's face it, it is not that you love many MPs. You love the CDF that an MP controls. You love the near proximity to somebody who can give you handouts. If it was for purposes of just an MP per se, then we don't need 349 members of the National Assembly. There are far too many. In fact, the Constitution goes further and says to transact business in the House, you need only 50. And I have been in that House. Yakoyo, you remember, my colleagues on this table, you know, that there is no time when you have more than 25% of the members of parliament in parliament at the same sitting, unless the president is coming to address the House or they are going to discuss salaries.
So why don't you rally behind what our court is actually advocating with this referendum push? He's got 100 million, or he's got 1 million signatures right now, yes. Looking at what we have on the front page of the Standard this morning. Punguza mizigo is what you're saying.
I can support it anytime and all the time, but you know, it is a question of the wish of the majority.
Wish of the majority.
If the majority of Kenyans want to have many MPs, then be it. If you reduce these MPs, and if the quorum is 50% to transact business in the National Assembly at the moment, and it works, if you reduce it and you pay the people well, it will be like when you have a good CEO who doesn't know that the CEOs of banks, CEO of Safaricom, they are paid a fortune. But because they deliver, we have no problem with what they are being paid. There is room for us to reduce members of parliament. My only fear about the referendum is that they are going to use an attractive statement like punguza mziko to now put on other things that are supposed to serve individuals.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Aaron Cheriot on Atiende on this briefly. Brevities of importance so that we can move on to other issues. Okay. We respond to Boni Khalwale.
You know, there's a lot of irony in Boni's statement, but it's understandable because sometimes that is what life is. People tend to speak from both ends of the mouth on certain issues. I was with Boni in Senate last time when we were clamoring for all these issues. Not a single day did Boni ever raise the kind of issues he's raising here. And he used to be a very active member of Senate. In fact, if I recall well, Boni, you were with Kiraitu Murungi on the committee that tried to establish even a separate PSC for members of the Senate, separate one from the one in National Assembly, because we felt because of that particular issue, you are his deputy. So you've been on the forefront of these issues. So you should be consistent, my brother, like you always are on the rest of the issues. And I think he captures it well when he concludes that this is purely an SRC issue. Had they handled the issue better, we wouldn't be in this particular position. If, for example, let me just ask a simple question, Debarl, and this is how I want to conclude. If the court has told you cannot pay people cumulative salary, why are they still insisting? Why would they, for example, now come up and say, okay, if that is the case, then we are proposing we pay MP's house allowance, even if it is 10,000 Kenyan shillings. We wouldn't mind, as Otiende is saying. But so long as you keep on insisting and say, we don't care about those people, that is where the problem begins. Until you get to a point of properly rationalizing these figures, we will continue to have this kind of wars. And you know, I don't know what is it that at SRC that the measure of success of a chairperson is how abrasive they are towards members of parliament. It's completely unfounded. This same SRC last December increased something, or they created a figure called the Judicial Responsibility Allowance to members of the judiciary. 150,000 Kenyan shillings. Nobody is complaining. But when members of parliament get any single pack that is duly deserved of them, you want to bring the whole country down with you. Therefore, to the members of the press who continue to sponsor this kind of stories, in fact, somebody has sent me a message and said, I've tried to listen to your arguments and follow this story through in the media. I think we are being distracted from a bigger scandal elsewhere. Because there's no story here. And chances are it could be true. Something serious is happening elsewhere, and you're just being asked to chase squirrel elsewhere. Finally, Boni Alwale, I can confirm to you that Otiende Amolo was in Egypt
Otiende is here to hold his own
he
brief.
met his own expenses. No, the reason I'm saying that is that I was to be on that trip with him, and I also paid my own expenses. Only that I was turned back because of something that came up. We bought our own air tickets, did our own flight bookings. We are not only politicians of this panel. How Otiende and I run our Tuesday is that at 6 a.m. we are here on NTV, and at 6 p.m. in the evening, we play football together. And on Thursdays, we play for Bunge FC. Therefore, I know his schedule. We are serious lovers of soccer, Boni. So,
the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not bear false witness.
No. If you think, Boni, surely. You think I'm lying? You think I'm lying?
No.
No. Can we give Otiende also time to pull out the constitution of this matter? Otiende, you can defend yourself.
You know, I've heard my brother, Dr. Boni Alwale, use very choice words. Celebrity mentality. Celebrity mentality, I don't know, going to Egypt on taxpayers' money and such. And it just occurred to me that Boni Halwale can use such words because he's living a better life now than he lived as a member of parliament. And as he was speaking, I was asking myself, had he not joined that camp, and we all know which camp, where would he be today? Boni would not be dressed smartly the way he's dressed now. He would not be getting lips in choppers as he's recently getting. He would be where Wamatangi was speaking about.
Yes.
The former colleagues, and they're doing very badly. Yeah. So, Boni, I think the choice here is for you, you'd rather not be a sitting MP, but be a member of that other camp. And it is okay, it's your constitutional right. But do not belittle others who choose not to go that way. First of all, between you and me, Boni, and you can look at page 5 of The Nation, as an MP, you are better paid than me. Yeah. Because on 7th July 2017, SRC reduced the gross salaries of MPs from 710,000 to 621. Yeah. So, speaking in terms of relativity, your earnings and perks were better than mine. Secondly, you must know that and I need to tell you this quite straight. I was in Egypt. I was in Egypt at my own cost. The hotel, the flight, and I went economy because that's what I chose to pay. You can do your inquiries. I will tell you that we as members of Bunge, Aaron Cheriot included, about 9 of us, chose that we wanted to go and support the Harambee Stars at our own cost.
Very good.
And we made the arrangements through Bonfire Ventures. And we paid our checks for it. Now, people like you do not believe that you can use your own money for a national endeavor because you've never done it. But some of us do it. And trust me, our love for football and our love for supporting this team goes beyond, you know, the simple narratives of pleasing this guy or pleasing the other guy. It is just honest. And I urge you to practice it sometime. Having said that, let me now come back to this thing of Punguza Mzigo. And I still want to come back to Boni. You know, Boni was in parliament for 3 terms. And at the time, the committee of experts drafted the constitution.
Before you go on, can I just give a chance to Jacob Midio?
I just wanted to answer only on that one.
Okay.
You asked the question, why should we not then support Okuro Ekot's effort? And that's all I want to answer.
I think that is all.
So let me answer it so that Jacob, who was in parliament,
yes,
also will come into it.
Okay.
The point is this. As members of the committee of experts, most Kenyans told us that they did not want additional MPs. That is the truth. But equally, when we asked the Kenyans if we could reduce some of the constituencies, not a single person agreed that their constituency could be abolished. So the first dilemma that presents is, and which is the truth, once you establish an administrative unit or an electoral unit, like a ward or especially a constituency, Kenyans will not support its reduction. So what we decided to do was then to maintain that number at 210 and to find ways of not increasing it. The members who are in parliament, including Boni Halwale, chose to increase that number by 80. When we went to them and asked them, why are you justifying? And we met the Legal Affairs Committee in Karen. We had a standoff for 5 hours. We said, you cannot increase this. They told us, and they told me specifically, I can quote even the members who told me, that listen, on this matter, it is a deal breaker. We have all agreed. We are the elected members. Otieno Molo, you have not been elected. That is how it increased to 290. So anybody who was in parliament like Boni Halwale, now coming and saying there are too many members of parliament, it should be reduced. It is false. It is a lie. You should start by explaining why it was increased in the first place. Now, the truth is right now, the hurdle that this is going to face is that Kenyans hate many MPs. They hate many MCAs, they hate many governors and all that. But they love the units that are created. True. They love the wards. They love the constituencies. True. So they will tell you, if you ask right now, should we reduce the number of MPs? They'll say yes. If you ask, can any one of you who's agreeable to us abolishing their constituency stand up? No one will. This kind of initiative, therefore, is good on paper, but very impractical.
Okay. Jacob Midio.
Debarl, what Otiende is saying, I'll just pick where he left. I think we need to upscale the debate a little bit.
Yes, please.
Let me disagree with Otiende. We don't love those units. Kenyans, you purport that they love them because they have not been told it's costing them money. You have not been told that this country cannot have 500 MPs near equal to the number of MPs in India with their population of over 1 billion people. We cannot afford 500 MPs. It is period. And I know MPs then may have made errors. But I, for one, I opposed the 290 constituencies. I even tried to convince Githu Muigai, who was the Attorney General of Kenya, to take that matter to court. He didn't think it was so important. But now we are here. We can't come back about the same issue 10 years later. This has failed. Boni has told us that the MPs are too many for good order in parliament. You know, when a constituency is 3 kilometers by 1.5 kilometers, like Kibra, the next MP from there will be that person on the streets, and we are not disparaging them. But we need exposed people in parliament. What happened to the days when we had the Bonaya Godanas, Kalonzo Musyokas, William Rutos, all those people sitting in parliament? The debate was sweet. It was about our country. Now, I have been talking to leadership of parliament. They tell you, MPs walk in, they sign in and walk out. I have personally given a member of parliament an issue to query in parliament. I sat him down. We had lunch. Tell him, here is the paperwork. This is not good for our people. He never even went to the parliament with the paperwork. Because he is in the wrong place. Debarl, we must reorganize our country. The debate must be bigger than what we are doing here. I don't think, I want to plead with Bonnie. You see, this thing about referendum, because you cannot do this thing away from referendum. And we cannot go. There's something we keep doing called public participation. We are doing it wrong. You can't go ask my mother about a taxation bill in Akala. You know, that is why that power is exercised through leaders. It is in our constitution.
Thank you.
So what I wanted to say, Debarl, let us open the debate. When this BBI thing comes, at this level, let us talk about our country. Forget about this person on the street, because this person on the street has ideas, but the state made sure that they cannot access the system. So they can't be shouting and then their issues find their way in a good document. Let us find a structured way. We sat in Bomas. Let us use the Bomas draft as a reference point to a good and orderly constitution. But let me say this as I finish. You know, I want to challenge the media. And the way you have serialized this issue of MPs with non-factual facts. Tell us.
Non-factual facts.
Non-factual facts.
How?
Non-factual argument.
Argument, yeah. A non-factual argument. Tell us, throw what a cabinet secretary has as a pact, what our judicial officers have as a pact, what all these people Kenyans don't even know them. Kenyans don't even know them. Remember, in this country, the people who are formally taxed are only 1 million people.
Thank you.
The rest are in the formal sector.
Right, thank you.
Well, you're cutting this is very important.
Yeah.
I have heard the trend of the majority.
I thought we agreed we're actually winding up. No, we need to gravitate to other issues.
The majority.
Just a moment.
No, you have spoken. Let us. Let us.
Excuse me. We dedicated 10 minutes for each of you. We had attended.
They spoke, so it is my chance, my friend. And I wanted to congratulate this man.
Are you contributing? Just a moment. Let's have just a moment.
Can I first start by congratulating Jacoyo, because my brother, I see you are learning well. Yes. The game of this corner.
I didn't know.
When you are speaking, you say finally.
Almost.
To my last point.
You say lastly, and as I finish. Now, you know, I wanted to, at the risk of breaching customer confidentiality, I wanted to defend Bonnie Halwale, indeed, as my friend, because one, I know that he's really not, as Otiende alleges, that really changed his lifestyle so much because of our new whatever we've been. But I also wanted to that's why I said maybe I might breach confidentiality. But I also wanted to reveal that my friend Bonnie drives a Mercedes Benz, and also a Land Cruiser, because he comes to my place, for driving around. And so he may not have even been very poor during the days when he was in Parliament. So he might have enjoyed some of those benefits. But then also, what you would have done for fairness, when Otiende said he paid his way to Egypt and Chariot is supporting, in this trip that they had paid themselves, they would also have gone ahead and explained to our viewers where were they watching and supporting the team from. Because if Otiende was doing that in Egypt at the lobby of Sheraton, or in a suite. So, watching from a 3D screen. Debarl, this discussion on Punguza Mzigo cannot be limited to either the number of constituencies we have, cannot be limited to the number of members of parliament we have. Indeed, when Kenyans get the opportunity to speak about Punguza Mzigo, Kenyans will speak. Because the review of Punguza Mzigo that Kenyans are seeking for is extensive. It is about a complete renegotiation of the social contract. Kenyans will want to address issues of corruption that are in government. Kenyans will want to address the issues of wastage of public funds. If you go to most government ministries and arms and agencies, the wastage there is unparalleled. Kenyans will want to say we want a better working judicial system where thieves and corrupt people are convicted. And we want a system that delivers from the end, that flows to where the public and common person is. And so this discussion on Punguza Mzigo is absolutely not limited to a reviewing of boundaries, that we will collapse the wards or reduce the number. Yes, that is one of them. But in my view, what Kenyans are looking for is the overall cost that is that they have to bear on behalf of running government in all ways. And you know, Debarl, in this discussion that we have had today, one fact that continues to be left at the backdrop of the discussion is how much money is lost in the eventual cost of running of government. Because as I said, you know, in a discussion like this one, emotion trumps reason. And that's why you find that there will be no question once you mention MPs of how much does it cost. And I think it was Otieno who tried to say that. How much does it cost to run parliament in its entirety from remuneration and all others? And then how much, and you can see that in the evidence of the budget that we had. Remember, for example, in this budget, one ministry, the Minister of Interior, has got an allocation equal to the allocation to all the counties, 47 counties. So if then you also take the allocation to Parliament, and in total, ask yourself, out of the 3 trillion, 400, less than 300 billion, about 310, that's the allocation to counties, is being allocated to counties. If you say then minus the 3 trillion, how much is left to national government? Almost 2.6 trillion. So how is this 2.6 trillion spent? And how much of it goes to waste? So when Kenyans are talking about Punguza Mzigo, they're not really just looking at how much goes to Parliament. People want to know, this budget that you have given us of so many trillions, what are you going to do with the money across the board? And once we get to this discussion in a referendum, I think this is when you realize that Kenyans have been sharper than they were before. They are more keen. And most of the expectations that we have as politicians, if the referendum is called, will be a surprise. Because you will start seeing petitions. And I remember Otiende Amolo, the last few days, I was one of those people who petitioned your committee on experts. But unfortunately, all the petitions we took, those last few days that you said you opened 100 days, none of them was ever put into consideration. The draft that they had given us, after we took those, they opened that window, all the petitions we took, none of them was considered. And this time, with that opening, that we have another opportunity to say the things that we said then, now you hear different stories. And believe me, people will be surprised this time, especially in the political makeup.
Right, thank
because
you.
Kenyans
We've
now
got a few
want
minutes
a
remaining.
different version of government.
Yeah, Bonnie, we need to close up on this
Everybody has
MPs.
had a second bite on the cherry, so should I. I think the point I want to emphasize, I said at the beginning, that I support MPs being paid well because we want them to do a good job. However, we want to avoid obnoxious demands. For example, we can still pay MPs a house allowance of 50,000, and if an MP feels that he can't stay in that kind of house, he can top it up. He can go to Karen and go wherever he wants to go. It doesn't matter. Because if he doesn't like staying where 50,000 will take him, he has the choice of refusing to take up the job.
If you're on the other side of actually where they are right now, would you have advocated for what you're advocating right now?
You should have asked me in my 15 years, how have I been living in Nairobi? Then you would have answered yourself.
Then tell us briefly.
Then the issue of the car grant.
Yes.
The car grant, members of parliament want to raise it from 5 million to 10 million. If you don't like a car of 5 million, accept the grant of 5 million, then top it up using your businesses like Mheshimiwa Matangi. I remember in my earlier days, we used to be given an opportunity to buy a car duty-free. And one of my friends, a businessman, Engineer Ephraim Maina, he then took advantage of that to buy a Mercedes-Benz 600 SLE. Yeah, he bought that. So you have a choice. If you want to live like a celebrity, you can top up the 5 billion from your good legal practice, wherever you're working, and it will work very well. The issue of mortgage. If you tell Kenyans, in Nairobi particularly, that somebody who has access to a mortgage of 20 million is being mistreated by the employer, you're not being realistic. Mortgage of 20 million allows you to get a reasonable house. To buy a house of 20 million in Nairobi, I mean, what more would you be asking for? If you want to live like a celebrity, go and top it up with your other earning. My final point on this is a point raised by my brother Jacob Mediwo. Even if we have these 349 members of parliament in the National Assembly, do they have an opportunity to work? The answer is no, because we have looked at debate. When Amolo Otiende wants to start speaking, he's timed out. Because there's no time, they must give time to as many members as possible to speak in 2-3 minutes. We would like fewer members of MPs, fewer members of parliament who can articulate issues in the same manner, Jacoya, we used to do when we were fewer. So that you'll find professionals like Cheriot here, business people like Kimani, useful professionals like Otiende, they are unable to be of use to the country. We've even seen in the House very sad things where Speaker Muturi tells a member, that member there in a red tie. I mean, because there are so many. So we need to cut it out, reduce the number of members of parliament. Otiende, if you think you cannot reduce units, how come under the new constitution we managed to reduce wards? We reduced wards very comfortably and nobody fought in Kenya. We can reduce members of parliament. We can reduce the number of counties. If I give examples, I'll be killed on social media today. But let me give you an example. What justification is there to have a county called Isiolo and another one called Lamu with 2 constituencies, and yet you have a county called Kakamega and a county called Kiambu with 12 constituencies? We should stop massaging the egos of tribes.
Yes.
If we are moving into a tribeless nation, let us say that the minimum population, the minimum number of constituencies for a county will be even across the board. These are the difficult decisions we are supposed to make in the referendum, and not create, use the referendum to create a position for Raila, a position for Kalonzo, a position for Gideon Moi, for who? So that the 5 top,
for Ruto.
Yeah, so that the 5 top tribes in Kenya can have somebody in the executive. So if Luyas, Kambas, Kikuyus, Kalenjins, and Luos, top 5, will have at least somebody in the executive. How about the Pokomos? How about the Tesos? How about the Turupukanas? Are they not Kenyan tribes? This is a meaningless pursuit of trying to create a constitution that serves only 5 tribes in this country.
Thank you.
What have you said?
I have said no to the referendum of expanding the executive, because that is what you are pursuing yourself.
All right, I think that is a debate for another time.
Yes.
But who is pursuing this particular referendum of expanding the executive?
I think we should
It is.
Let's give closing remarks because of time.
He has nothing.
No. We are just eating it.
It is ODM because even Jubilee, the Jubilee.
Why are you allowing Halwale to continue saying nothing?
Let's hear him.
If you have something to say, you say.
That's a very big discussion, Debarl.
Just a moment.
Let me tell you why.
No.
I want to tell you
Let
why.
him finish. Then we
But
give you the
it's
chance.
finished.
Are you done?
Closed.
I am repeating for the sake
You see,
of
repeating.
Omolo Otiende to hear clearly. Even the so-called Building Bridges initiative that was a product of the handshake between Uhuru and Raila, Uhuru does not speak about it. Jubilee, Uhuru's party, does not speak about it.
But
it is ODM that calls PGs, that calls party organs,
all right,
and
just a
party
moment.
leaders
Okay.
that keeps on speaking.
thank you,
we
Boni.
don't want it.
Thank
we
you,
want
Boni.
one Kenya.
All right, no, thank you. I want us now to dedicate time to actually also. No. We need to wind up. Wait, just a moment. We need to wind up. This is just a moment.
To steal all these things.
Because I know. No. Just a moment. We'll dedicate. No, listen. We'll dedicate next week to actually the question of referendum, which is coming to the fore, and now we can actually debate on it as well.
Okay.
A lot is really happening. For now, we want to dedicate some time.
If the greed of an MP is bad, the greed of a political
And you're
party is
lying
even
all
worse.
time.
Boni,
Debarl, what is happening?
we are wind up. Boni, please.
You know,
Order. Calling you to order. All right.
I think you need to control Bonnie.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, guys.
I don't know what it took.
We want to just a moment.
Where did he say?
If at all.
Right now, we want to dedicate this time also to pay tribute and, of course, our deepest sympathy and condolences to the businessman and advocate of the High Court, that is Karanja Kabage. And we know that particular story. Everyone woke up on Saturday to that shocking news. Right now, we are following the story, and we have the IG who has ordered that investigation be directed to the criminal investigation to investigate the death of businessman cum lawyer, that is Karanja Kabage. And maybe just read a snippet of what we had on Saturday. This was on Sunday in the Standard. Taxi driver stopped and joined another Good Samaritan. The victim requested to be driven to Nairobi, that is Karanja Kabage Hospital, according to police spokesperson Charles Owino. Mr. Owino said the taxi driver drove Kabage's Land Cruiser to Nairobi Hospital. According to police report, Kabage was driving himself on the southern bypass when his vehicle veered off to the wrong side of the road, slowed down, and appeared to be making a U-turn before slightly hitting a pavement on Friday. And it goes on to say it goes on to say that Mr. Kabage died hours after making a presentation at Mount Kenya's leaders meeting. That was the Uongozi Forum at the Safari Park on Friday. Kabage was among the top presenters at first annual Mount Kenya High Level Uongozi Forum 2019, bringing together scholars, politicians, business people, and career civil servants, held at Safari Park Hotel. A gentleman of the first water, I should say. I've interacted with Kabage, who was very impassioned about this country and the leadership of this country. He's shared on this panel before, even on People and Politics and in the Market here on AM Live. We've just captured moments that we had with him also on People and Politics, and here is what Kabage had to say.
Let me put it this way. After very many years, we passed a new constitution in 2010. And that constitution was passed by close to 70% of the Kenyan people.
Yes.
In fact, 69%, only 31% did not vote for it. The structures that were put in my opinion, have not been fully exploited. And if we embark on a new dispensation or constitution making, or referendum to change the constitution, we have not quite had enough time to even interrogate the new constitution. But that doesn't mean Kenyans cannot sit down and say, we agree, we need to change the constitution. The question is, what are you changing it to? That's most important. I would support the idea of looking at the constitution from a national consensus perspective. We look at it, and there are certain areas which I am very concerned about personally. And that is the size of the legislative bodies. The parliament, the national parliament, that is composed of the National Assembly and the Senate. The sizes are enormously expensive for this country. If you go to the issue of the county assemblies, we got so many poor people. that it's just like busybodies. And that is not the problem. The problem is the cost to the nation. If you look at our national budget, it is quite clear that we are into consumption. We are not into development. And what is the purpose of politics? The purpose of politics is to move the standard of living of our people to the next level. But if you don't have the financial wherewithal to be able to do that, then at the end of the day, you're marking time. Now that, to me, is something that needs to be looked at very carefully. Now, but as we advocate for any changes that may be there, we need to be quite alive to Chapter 16 of our Constitution. And specifically Article 255, 256, and 257.
Yes.
Many times when I have heard people talk about changing this Constitution, I always wonder how many of our people have deeply interrogated the process of changing the Constitution. It is a very onerous job, unless we have a national consensus. Today, I can tell you without any fear of contradiction, no party, whether it's Jubilee, All, NASA, a coalition, can on itself, by itself, be able to prosecute a constitutional amendment.
A peerless source of wisdom there from Kabage, especially as the country faces this particular specter of changing the constitution. A gentleman of the fast water, we will dearly miss him as a man who actually articulated issues to do with the constitution and, of course, development of his country very passionately. I will give our panelists also some few moments as we're winding up, just very briefly because of interest of time, to just, of course, pay the tribute and the deepest sympathy also to advocate and businessman Karaja Kabage. Let's just begin with you, Dr. Tienda Molo.
Well, we all pay our condolences to our fallen colleague, and I think he joins a list of unresolved deaths, and they should be resolved as soon as possible. One of the things people don't know about Karaja Kabage is that he was more of a businessman and studied law as a senior student. But even then, most people thought he was always a lawyer, which is something good for him, because the passion for the law was always there, and it's a lesson for all those who want to study law even at an advanced age. I believe that the remarks he made were timely. I think that we should do two things. We should review and audit our performance in terms of the Constitution, and consider reviewing that Constitution in terms of system of government and system of parliament that we have.
Right. Wani Khalwale, briefly.
Yes, what has come out tellingly is the emphasis that a successful referendum must be preceded with a national conversation. Currently, what is going on in the so-called Building Bridges initiative, that is not a national conversation. If it was a national conversation, then it would have started with all stakeholders recommending membership to the Building Bridges initiative. If you ask political parties, regions, and communities who represents who on that committee, they cannot tell you.
Thank you.
So whatever product that the BBI is going to put on the table, I can assure you, just in the same words, it's going to fail.
It's going to fail. Thank you. And lastly, maybe let's hear from also Aaron Cheriot.
Condolences to his friends and family. He was a colleague here, debated a number of times, always didn't share some of his views, but you could see the passion with which and the conviction he had on many of the points that he articulated on this show. We will have time to interrogate many of the things, but I think the most timely one is the one that you played about what it will take for us to agree as a country, because many of the times we have asked ourselves, which way Kenya, in light of all these challenges that we are facing as a society, how can we make Kenya better? And he has pointed out that you can only do it through consensus by speaking to one another, not at each other.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jacob.
An admirable gentleman, May his soul rest in peace. And I don't think what he has said can be better said by anybody else. I only want to take opportunity to plead with Bonnie to tell his boss that it would be not in good order. It would look so bad that we keep opposing everything. He opposed the other referendum. Please don't oppose this one. Let us look for ways to bring Kenyans together. And it is good for all of us.
Finally, let's hear from Kimani Mata.
Yeah, Debarl, on Saturday morning, I was a very saddened person. Saddened because when I heard about the death of Karanja Kabage, I had been invited personally for that Mount Kenya leaders meeting on Friday. I was unable to attend because I was holding another meeting in Parliament. And I missed the opportunity to see my friend for the last time because he was there. And I've shared this panel with him and other forums. And two things I would just say about him. One, I can't imagine the opportunity that the people of Molo missed for all the times when he ran to be a member of parliament and to be a senator within Nakuru. Maybe he would have caused huge change in those counties with his sobriety. As Otende says, he was an astute businessman. By the way, Karanja was a very, very successful businessman. One thing that was outstanding about him is his humility. Amidst such success, he still remained very humble. And of course, lastly, he was the comparative of Otiende. You see, all the time, he would refer to the Constitution and know it backwards and forward. So I think he's a good example. May his soul rest in eternal peace. My very sincere condolences to his family.
Right, we'll leave it at that. A very self-effacing, humble gentleman of the first water, as I've mentioned, a peerless source of wisdom. Karanja Kabage, we'll miss your contribution here on AM Live as well. Thank you so much for your valued company. We'll leave you with this editorial cartoon. And of course, Aaron Cheriot will tell us whose baby it is. Whose baby is it? Right? Abuju, 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 Abuju. Abuju, Abuju, this is Itumbi, and of course we know what is actually happening right now as far as the controversial recordings are concerned. He says he has recordings regarding the Lamada meeting. Abuju, Abuju, Aaron Cheriot, your homework is to tell us whose baby is it. We've seen him being shoved between the two executive. Whose baby is it?
Jubilee.
It is Jubilee's baby.
Dennis Itumbi is ours. And by the way, one of these days, Debarl, let us discuss this very bad habit that this year are developing of arresting Kenyans, then asking for 14 days to conclude the investigation.
Thank you.
It's wrong.
And
Next
also
week.
it is being used as a political tool. I can tell you, for example, yesterday in Mombasa, they arrested Chris Aleri
just a moment.
for being a member of the
we were winding up. We were winding up. No. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just that cartoon.
Right?
Can I tell you whose baby it is?
Tell us whose baby. Just put back the cartoon. We're winding up.
Yes.
Whose baby?
No.
Otene Molo?
Yes.
The cartoon.
Look.
Yeah.
Look at the tie of the guy on the right and the color of the jersey that Itumbi is wearing. That is the father of the baby.
We'll leave it at that. Thank you.